with what emotion have you felt during this pandemic? And you can only answer with one word. So again, you're going to text that keyword to the number 22333, and you're going to respond with, what emotion have you felt during this pandemic? In one word. All right, so we're starting to get some. Yeah, so we're seeing stressed, bored, anxious, sad, nervous, mixed feelings, overwhelmed, anxious, disappointed, craziness, yeah. Stressed, bored, anxious, unmotivated. All right. So I like this visual for us to look at because it really shows us the most prominent features that we're feeling today. And as we can see, many of us are feeling anxious, stressed, bored, and confused. All right. So what the purpose of this exercise was to show you guys that you are not alone, that a lot of us here, even in this Zoom call today, are feeling a lot of the same issues and same mental health concerns. Though we may not openly talk about it, though we may be struggling alone, that you are not the only one struggling. So thank you guys for participating in that. I'm going to take a screenshot of this so we have it saved. And let's move on. So going with the fact that you are not alone, I wanted to share some statistics about mental health. So 47.6 million adults suffered from mental illness in 2018, and 7.7 million youths within the age of 6 to 17 experienced a mental health disorder in 2018. So this is, again, just to show you, adults, youths, you are not alone in this, and you are one of the many that are struggling with mental health concerns. And I'm so happy that our church and our youth fellowship is having an open conversation about this, to say that it's okay to talk about our mental health concerns. It's okay to admit that we are not okay and we don't have everything together. So to start off, I really based this seminar and this training on what you guys had shared about feeling stressed and anxious. And that's really what we're going to dive into today. So to start off, what is stress? So stress is our mind and our body's natural response to situations that our brain perceives as being threatening or dangerous. So this is actually an evolutionary process. We know as in evolution, you can either fight a situation or a threat, or you can flight from it. And that's really where stress comes from. Some of the stressors that we experience in our lives are school, so homework, papers, finals, even clubs that you're part of, responsibilities as a student, families and relationships or friendships that you're experiencing, whether they're interpersonal problems, occupation, what are your job responsibilities, what types of stressors does that bring home for you? Natural disasters can be a life stressor, finances, future. I know from speaking with a lot of you that future and career and college path are really big steps right now for you guys that you are concerned about. And especially in this time, given COVID-19, our health is a really big concern. And so what are some specific COVID-19 related stressors? Well, I was thinking a lot about this, and I came up with a few that seem to be most prominent to a lot of us. For example, the possibility of becoming infected, switching over to online learning, or working from home and having to battle not feeling focused or not knowing and not having enough time to get all this work done. I know a lot of high school students have been sharing that they have even more work than they did before. For those working in hospital settings, a shortness of supplies, for either nurses or doctors, or even those in grocery stores, or essential workers that don't have enough protective gear. So being underprepared for certain situations, being isolated from our families and friends. I know this has been really hard for myself, not being able to have the freedom to leave my home and to see my family and my friends, and feeling as though I'm stuck here. This is a clear disruption of our normal routine, our everyday routine, that we had never expected this to happen. The rising death toll, a lot of us are using our phones and our computers or TVs to get updated information about this. I know my mom usually has her TV on all day, and it raises anxiety levels, and it really increases our sense of fear and a loss of hope. An inability to celebrate life's milestones. So many people are celebrating, are having to push their weddings or engagements, or a lot of you guys are seniors in college or high school, your graduation. That's really difficult. That's really hard to think that you've been waiting for these life moments and not being able to experience it the way you had before. And then being able to take care, or having to take care of your loved ones, and just being home with your family and having to be in that space all over again, especially college students who move back home from college dorms or apartments or campuses. That's a big, really big adjustment. So from this list, we can see so many ways that COVID-19 has just impacted how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis, and why it's so important to have conversations about why we need to take care of our mental health during this time. So why is it important? Why do we need to address our stress? Well, not only does stress impact our mind, but it also impacts our body. So for example, we can feel irritable because of stress, angry, anxious, depressed, lack of motivation, rumination, which means we're overthinking too much, insomnia, which is trouble sleeping at night. We can experience loneliness or exhaustion. So these are some of the ways stress impacts us psychologically. And then physiologically, we experience restlessness. We can get headaches. People who have significant stress experience cardiac problems, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and this can also compromise your immune system. So as we see here, if stress is left unaddressed, then we are putting ourselves at risk for significant psychological and physiological consequences. So how does stress work? So this is a really great diagram of the way stress kind of implicates and kind of the structure to it. So I'll provide examples of this later on, but first there's a situation that happens. And then we form automatic thoughts, and then we react to it emotionally, behaviorally, and physiologically. So what this graph is saying is that some sort of external situation causes us to think a certain way, causes us to feel a certain way, and causes us to respond in a certain way. And so this is really getting at the interaction or the relationship between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. And we're going to talk more about what we can do to address some of that to promote healthy behaviors, but this is really how stress works, is the interaction between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So an example. So the situation that I have here is you have a test coming up. So in the left side, we can see the thought can be, I can't do this, I'm not smart enough. The feeling associated with that is anxiousness, worrying, scared. And then the behavior can be, well, maybe you fail the test, or maybe you avoid taking the test, you don't even show up to class, or maybe you start crying. And so we can really see how our thoughts influence how we're feeling and then how we're acting upon our feelings. And in the second example, it's the same situation, a final test. And the thought of this person is, well, I'm going to try my best, and I am capable. I can do this. I studied. Um, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I do well. And the feelings associated with those thoughts are feelings of hopefulness or calmness or happiness. And that in turn makes the person focus better on the test, and maybe they'll even pass the test. And of course, this is just a simple example, but I can definitely speak to the power of our thoughts. I was in a very similar situation when I first took my GRE exam. I went to Fairlawn for the testing center. I took the exam, and immediately I got overwhelmed by the items and the questions, and I was just feeling exactly what this diagram is saying. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I can't sit here for 8 hours and take this test. And I felt so worried and so scared, and I even cried at the testing center. And as soon as I just started breathing or started changing my thoughts of like, no, I can do this. No, I studied for this. No, I pushed through. It really helped me to be able to calm down my body and control my thoughts and my feelings so that I can push through and finish the exam. And thankfully, I'm in graduate school. So definitely a blessing to be able to kind of be mindful of our thoughts and to know that our thoughts do influence our feelings and our behaviors. All right, so some common thoughts that some of us or many of us may be experiencing right now during COVID-19 is, I'll get sick, I can't handle the workload, I won't go back to school this year, I won't be able to see my friends, I can't celebrate my birthday. And some of us may even be questioning, well, where is God? So the next half of this is going to be more so talking about what can you do. So the first thing that we can do is know the symptoms. Once we are able to identify the triggers of when we are feeling anxious or worried or stressed, then we're able to better address them. So some of the symptoms, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this in certain situations where you felt anxious. We experience pounding of our hearts or racing hearts. Our fingers may be cold. We can experience rapid breathing, increased sweating, sensitivity to light, nausea, dry mouth, muscle tension and cramps or trembling and shaking, and decreased sensitivity to pain. And so when I work with children and clients who have struggled with anxiety, oftentimes what we do is we create like a gingerbread cookie cutter, and we color in the areas in our body where we feel the most anxious. So a lot of people will say, I feel it in my stomach, or I feel it in my chest. And that really helps us to say, okay, next time I'm in a stressful situation and I start to recognize that these are the places in my own body where I'm feeling these symptoms, I know I need to address it. I know I need to, which we will talk about, be able to practice my coping skills to be able to calm my body down. And like we said earlier, stress really impacts our body, our mind, our health. And it's so important to know these symptoms and be able to address it. So we were talking about before how stress is related to our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. So this is one or few strategies that you can do is being mindful of your thinking patterns. So first, accepting that you are that not everything is in your control. And I want to read a verse for you all. The verse is James 4, verse 13 to 16. It says, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into the city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why? Do you not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is a sin for them." So even the Bible talks about the fact that we are not in control of today or tomorrow, or the next day. And especially in a time where God took away everything from us, all of our distractions, all of our responsibilities, we can see how powerful God is in this moment, and that he can give and he can take away. So understanding and accepting that you are not in control and that God is in control of your life. And then being able to look at your thoughts and saying, okay, are my thoughts helpful thoughts or unhelpful thoughts? And you can do that and kind of discern between whether they're helpful or unhelpful by the way they make you feel and by the actions that they make you take, similar to the triangle we were talking about earlier. So it's really important once you start to feel those physiological symptoms to be mindful of, are these positive or are these negative thoughts? And then realizing that, okay, so I can't control my environment or I can't control the situation, but I am in control of how I respond to it. I am in control of how I feel and how I think, and I can respond to it in a healthy and positive way. And then it's also just important to allow yourself to feel some of those feelings first, to be able to take the situation and say, okay, this is hard for me, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling anxious right now, because your feelings, especially given COVID-19, a lot of you are saying you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed. That is completely valid, and we should acknowledge how we're feeling. It becomes detrimental when we're letting those feelings prolong for too long, and we're kind of throwing ourselves a pity party in our emotions. So being mindful that it's okay, like I said, to not be okay, and it's okay to feel your emotions, but then we got to pick ourselves back up, and we have to be able to make positive changes and positive thoughts. One way to do that is by expressing gratitude. So you can do this by creating a gratitude journal or waking up, and in your prayer time, you can thank God for 3 things that he has done for you during the day. You're thankful for 3 things that he has blessed you with during the day. And that will really help us to do some perspective taking and be able to really put hope and positivity into our life instead of focusing on the negative. All right, next is emotion regulation. So emotion regulation is a practice. It's research-based, so that means that research has been conducted to show its effectiveness in reducing anxiety and stress. And it's more so a practice that you have to do regularly in order to experience its benefits. It's a time where you spend only focusing on one thing, so that your mind isn't focused elsewhere on other stressors or anxieties. So I know a lot of us may think of like yoga or meditation, but this is a little different. This is really just being mindful and present in the moment. And the benefits of that is you maintain awareness of your stress triggers. You can address stress before it gets to the point of negative consequences. You can practice selective attention. So what circumstances in your life are you going to give attention to versus not give attention to? Being able to express yourself using your emotions. So like we said today in our little icebreaker, we had to explain situations in which we felt those emotions, and really linking our experiences to how we feel, and being able to identify those feelings is a step towards experiencing coping and healing. And then emotion regulation is really a lifestyle. It helps us to maintain our health, reduce our anxiety, and be able to incorporate this into our daily practice. So these are some examples of emotion regulation. These are just a few. So the first one is deep breathing. And I'd like to just show us an example of that. You guys can follow along. So deep breathing is an exercise where you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and your belly should be rising and falling. So when you're doing deep breathing, your shoulders shouldn't be moving up, only your belly should. So if you guys would all like to sit up in a comfortable position, and we can just practice by taking 5 deep breaths in. So again, you're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. So breathing in and out. In and out. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Inhaling and exhaling. One more time, inhale and exhale. All right, thanks for trying that out. We're definitely going to have time afterwards in our discussion groups to talk more about some of these strategies. I know this is just a little tiny exposure to it, but I just want to provide you as much information as I can in this short amount of time, and then we can have time to discuss. So that's deep breathing or breathing awareness. The next is progressive muscle relaxation, and those who came to our mindfulness class 2 weeks ago, this is one that we did that a few youths had said they really enjoyed and actually helped both their body and mind to feel relaxed. So progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, involves tensing your muscles tightly and slowly releasing them. And the aspect of tensing and releasing engages you in a fuller state of relaxation. A few of the youths during our mindfulness activity actually said that doing that helped them to feel so calm. And what's wonderful about PMR is that you start from like your toes to your calves, to your thighs, to your stomach, to your chest. And you really focus on every part of your body. And that's very similar to body scan. Body scan, you're just being mindful of feelings that you have in your body. So we're not really tensing muscles, but we're just being aware of thinking about our shoulders or our elbows or our fingers or our head or our mouth, and being mindful of that. So as you can see, these exercises are really helping us to be present in the moment and focusing on only one thing at a time. And as we come and have different thoughts or distractions, usually these are led by scripts or led by a leader. So if you're not taking a class, then you're listening to an audio. And the audio most of the time will say, if you have a thought that's distracting you, acknowledge it and simply brush it away. The next one is 5 senses. This is really great with younger kids and even older kids. And this is something that you can even do while you're studying or while you're working. So this involves, again, being mindful of your space and where you're at, saying 5 things that you see, 4 things that you feel, 3 that you hear, 2 that you smell, and 1 that you taste. So if you guys just want to take a couple seconds to kind of just look around your room, see some things, feel some things, hear some things. I'll give time to do that for a minute. For example, I can hear kids playing basketball outside. I can hear some cars. I can hear the TV downstairs. All right. Now the next one is guided imagery, and we actually did guided imagery our first Bible study where we did the leaves on the stream exercise. So guided imagery is a visualization exercise where you visualize maybe a flowing stream, or maybe at the beach, or a place that really brings you happiness and joy. And it's really taking your mind and helping you to be creative and focusing on that one thought. And that helps us to address some of the thoughts that we're feeling in addition to the physiological symptoms that we're experiencing. And then we have mindful coloring. And mindful coloring is really cool and fun because it's so simple. You can print out coloring pages online and just focus on coloring a beautiful picture. The same goes for things like mindful eating. How many of us eat while we're in front of the computer, or eat while we're watching TV, or eat while we're talking to someone? most of the time we're not monotasking, we're not doing one thing at a time. So these emotion regulation and mindfulness exercises help us to really focus on doing one thing at a time and being mindful and present so that we can control our thoughts and control our symptoms of anxiety and stress. Okay, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about faith and how faith plays into mental health. In a few weeks, Jay Matthew from Texas is going to be talking more about the relationship between faith and mental health and what the Bible says. So I'll definitely leave that to him. But just wanted to touch upon that there's a lot of research that has shown that faith encourages and supports the regulation of emotions, especially anxiety. And so, as we can see, even from here today, faith provides a sense of community to people, a sense of belonging. It encourages meditation and prayer time. And just the fact of knowing who God is and knowing that He has these promises for us and trusting that He is in control provides us with confidence and assurance. And as we look into the Bible, we can see Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Just as we were talking in our mental health mindfulness exercises, they're asking us to just be still, be in the moment. Matthew 6:26 says, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" In this verse, we see God saying, don't worry. Do not worry about what you will eat or drink. I will provide for you all of your needs. Philippians 4:16, a verse we're all very familiar with, says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God." God is here for you. He listens to you. He wants to know you. And He does not want you to be anxious about anything. And then John 14:27 says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." So again, we see that God wants peace for us. He wants calmness. He doesn't want our hearts to be troubled. He doesn't want our hearts to be afraid. And so, as we can see here, the Bible does address mental health, and God is calling us to live a life that is addressing our mental health needs and providing assurance and comfort in the Word, and knowing that we need to take certain steps in order to do so, that we can't just pray and not put in the work to take care of our mental health, that we need to address it by doing some of these things. All right, and now I have some other just helpful tips for dealing with COVID-19 and what are some things that can maybe be helpful in addressing some of the struggles you may be experiencing. So maintaining a consistent sleep schedule. I know a lot of us are not sleeping at the same time that we used to be when we had to wake up for work or for classes. I know I'm not, but maintaining a consistent sleep schedule helps us to have a better quality of life. There are several studies that have demonstrated the power of sleep in restoration and health and mental health, especially a consistent sleep schedule. So that should be maintained during the week and during the weekends. And if you have any questions about any of this, I'd be happy to talk more. Like I said, this is just a brief overview. Take frequent breaks. Research shows that 45 minutes is a good time to work, and then you should pair that with a 15-minute break. So use a timer, use a productivity block to be able to track your time and remind yourself to take breaks and avoid burnout. Stay connected with friends. I know a lot of us are doing house parties or FaceTime, so keep that up and stay social, stay connected with one another. Manage your time. I know some of the youths had expressed some struggles with time management. So manage your time by using agendas, using time planners, using schedules and tracking goals for the day, or being able to use a checklist of habit planners of things that you want to incorporate more into your daily routine, whether that's taking vitamins or doing exercises or spending time with family. Create a habit planner where you're doing that so you can make sure and reinforce these behaviors in your life. And then activity planning. So what are some things you can look forward to in the week? I have a little notepad here that I kind of write down my goals for the week, and then things that I do for self-care and things that I want to do for just my week to have fun and to look forward to something. So that can be baking or learning guitar or scheduling time for a movie night. So just being mindful and preparation of things that you can do during your week so that you're not bored or overwhelmed, that you can still have some sort of purpose and some sort of routine in your life. All right, so I did a lot of talking. I definitely wanted to share as much information as I could with you all. We are going to spend some time in small groups right now, and before we break out, Roshan is going to share with you in the group a self-care assessment. And so self-care, like we've already talked about, are things that you do to maintain good health and improve well-being. So there is an assessment that he's going to share in the chat, and I'd like for you all to complete it on your own in the next like 2 minutes, and then talk about what it was like filling that out with your group. So it goes over areas of spiritual care, professional care, educational, like academics and things like that. So you're going to rate it as 1, I do this poorly or I don't do it at all. 2, I do this okay or sometimes. 3, I do this well, I do this often. And then a star for if you want to improve this or if you want to do this more frequently. So this is just going to help you to kind of assess like your baseline of how well are you taking care of yourself in this time. And it's going to give you some ideas as to what you can do better in the future to take care of your mental health. So like I said, Roshan's going to send that out, and then we're going to break up into discussions. You can talk about your responses, and then here are some other discussion points that you can talk about. How do you currently take care of your mental health? How do you score on the self-care checklist? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? What role does faith play in addressing your mental health needs? And then what was something new that you learned today that was helpful for you, or something that you hope to take with you during this week?